Tonight on the show, we have two different guests. First, we're going to speak about the Al-Quds rally that took place in Toronto and the fact that we had a Shia clerk in Canada. Somehow they made it through. And at 7:30, we will provide you the update that you've been waiting for, everything you need to know about Bill C-9. My name is Nico Lagan, and I'm too conservative for the conservatives. My co-host, Rob Ambrose, not woke enough for the liberals. We are the Political Orphans. As I said, we have two guests. We normally just have one, but we had to have her on. We are joined by journalist Scarlett Grace to speak about the Shia clerk that was in Canada over the weekend that attended the Al-Quds rally in Toronto. Scarlett, welcome. Thanks for being
Hi.
here.
Hey,
Thanks for
Scarlett, how's it
having me.
going?
Hey.
Appreciate the time.
So on the weekend, I was looking at what was happening. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? What type of Canada do we live in? It is definitely not the Canada. I'm 44 now. This is not the Canada I grew up in. This is absolutely insane what we've become. We had a leader, an actual spiritual leader in the Shia clerk of Iran here in Canada, and he attended the Al-Quds rally that you were at, and you have a video that went completely viral. Last time I checked, it was over 1 million views. What's happening here? What's happening?
Well, just to clarify, there wasn't just one. So
Thanks a lot.
in total, what I've seen is 3. So we had the one that went viral at who was at Pearson Airport the night before
Mhm.
Al-Quds Day. And then the day of the march, there was somebody dressed exactly the same as him, the same colored robes, the same colored turban, everything, leading the march. And that was the second one that I saw that day. The first one I saw was just wandering around the streets, like the side streets of where the demonstration was, dressed in black. And that's the one who I approached and interviewed. So I saw 2 in person, and then there was the third one that went viral at Pearson Airport. However, the one who was leading the march, our friend Lynn Brooks, who's a Voice for Freedom, she's activist. She just went right up to him and asked, "Are you the guy from the airport video last night?" And he said he was, but we don't think it was. It doesn't look like him, right? So that's 3 separate individuals dressed in those garments, like mullahs. The one that I spoke to, I don't believe is from Iran. He did not sound like it. We think maybe Pakistan, Afghanistan, but the symbolism remains, and there were many of them.
Because the real question is, how the hell are those guys even allowed in Canada? Like, we're talking about Iran that has been killing thousands of protesters in the streets over the past few months. This is not a conspiracy theories. The conservative estimates are like 10,000. This is insane. And we have one of their spiritual leaders here in Canada, and it's reported. This has not been confirmed by anybody official, as in our immigration and citizenship has not confirmed that, but there's allegation that the guy we saw at Pearson Airport actually has a Canadian citizenship, and he got it very recently. So this is while he's doing what he's doing in Iran, we are accepting him here on top of what we already know to have at least 700 IRGC members in Canada. How does that make any sense? How is this possible? And how is the average Canadian not aware of this now?
Well, I mean, from what I've witnessed over the past couple of years since October 7th, it's none of this is surprising. It's kind of on the trajectory of where we've been going. I was still shocked at everything that I saw on Al-Quds Day, the fact that they were just roaming around Toronto's streets unabashedly, emboldened. It was another escalation, but all in all, it's really not surprising with the lack of police enforcement that we've had against just blatant terrorist symbolism. We've got
Mhm.
people cosplaying as Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, the mastermind behind October 7th, in Jewish neighborhoods, and waving Hamas flags, waving Hezbollah flags. And there's just no enforcement of our anti-terrorism laws and our anti-support of terrorism laws. There's no enforcement of the criminal code, which is supposed to come from the RCMP, and they're just MIA. So of course they're gonna start doing more. I mean, they're shooting up Jewish businesses in Toronto. They're shooting up synagogues, Iranian businesses, and lastly, the U.S. consulate, which has been the setting of the last few massive Iranian anti-regime demonstrations. So, like, of course, they feel comfortable to do this.
Yeah, I definitely think they've been emboldened by the Palestinian protests over the last few years. So, Scarlett, I was just wondering if you could give us a little bit, just for the viewers who are not super versed in this, is a little bit about what the Al-Quds rallies are about, and what you saw when you were there yesterday that was outside of the videos, the things that we haven't seen.
Sure. So Al-Quds Day was started by Ayatollah Khomeini, not to be confused with Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who just died 2 weeks ago. Ayatollah Khomeini died in '89, and he was the first supreme leader of Iran after the Islamic Revolution. And he started this right away in 1979 to unite Muslims around the world in solidarity with Palestinians in protest to Israel's control of Jerusalem, Al-Quds in Arabic. So it's basically a worldwide call against the only Jewish state.
Sure.
It's a giant anti-Semitic hate march, and all of this goes back to the regime in Iran, which funds Hezbollah, funds Hamas, is the axis of terror in the Middle East. And it's not just
They
happening in Muslim countries; it's happening right here. It's
Everywhere,
crazy.
yeah.
and it's happening in England. It's happening all over the place. At the end of the
Actually,
day,
they banned it. They banned it in the UK, but they didn't ban it here,
Wow.
which is like,
Wow. That's shocking.
I
That
know,
is
I can't believe
shocking
it.
that they were able to do that.
yeah, even Ford tried to.
I
He
don't think
tried.
he tried.
Well, that's
No,
that's the first time I
yeah.
really heard about it. That's why I was asking Scarlett to kind of brief us, because I only first heard about it when I saw
So
that Doug Ford tried
Doug
to.
Ford
But-
actually
But
tweeted 8
before
years ago that he would
before you
stop it.
go, just before you go, I just wanted to mention one thing and have you confirm if that's true, because from my research, Al-Quds, yes, is Jerusalem. It's how they call Jerusalem in Arabic. But let's be honest here. If you look at the Quran, they are a political system. They base their system on invasion. And it's, to me, Al-Quds is the same thing as saying from the river to the sea. They want to take back what they believe belongs to them. And I'm a Christian, right? Jerusalem is where when my God came to earth, that's where he was. That's where he's from. I'm not saying I should kill all the Jews to get it back from them. But let's be honest, when you're celebrating Al-Quds, you're saying out loud that Jerusalem belongs to you. And if you understand the Quran, you understand the political system of war that they base their religion on, they want it back. So I don't see any difference between us celebrating, and by us, I'm saying allowing a celebration of Al-Quds in Toronto, any different from somebody from the Free Palestine movement saying from the river to the sea. To me, it's the exact same thing.
But they allow that too. They allow that too. So it is the same to the Canadian government. You know, it's allowed in their opinion.
Do you agree? Do you agree that it's the same? Because you know more than I do. It's just when I was looking into it, my mind was blown that again, this is acceptable in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was just another pro-Palestine march, but it was also, a little more of support for the Islamic Republic, which is really particularly disgusting at this time after the actual genocide that's occurring in Iran at the hands of the Islamic Republic, who started this holiday. And so for all of those people to be marching for the Al-Quds Day March, they're basically spitting in the faces of the tens of thousands of Iranians who've been fighting for freedom empty-handed. They're supporting their oppressors, so supporting their murderers. Just open in the it's mind-blowing. It's disgusting.
So as Rob asked, what did you see when you were there? Because I agree with this. I wasn't there. I wasn't in Toronto, but I'd be curious to. And it's, you see clippets, you see a minute video there, you see a 2-minute video there, but you see that crazy guy that's yelling, "Let's kill Canadians," faking to stab in the air.
Stabbing guy.
What was it? What was the energy there? What did you get from attending or reporting on the rally, not attending?
It's all just violent volatility, just hate coming from that side. So the day started, two sides were separated. They had the side of the Al-Quds Day people, the Palestinian flag, the flag of the Islamic Republic, portraits of Khomeini on one side of the road. And then on the other side of the road were the anti-regime, pro-freedom Iranians and allies, Jews, Canadians, Canadian flags, American flags, Israeli flags, Lion and Sun flags. And it was just night and day. On one side of the street, we're dancing, celebrating, playing the YMCA. And then on the other side, they are doing the stabbing motions and the, all the violent things that they do. And then that side starts to march. And as the day continued, I followed the march with my videographer to report on that. Unfortunately, I lost all the good guys; they stayed behind, but I went with the bad guys, and they, would come up to me. They one girl got just by my security and body checked me and grabbed my mic. Thankfully, my security was great, and they got rid of her. But it's just violence. They're just angry and violent and genocidal, just to be blunt. They're a monstrous bunch.
So you said security, because that is one thing I'm a bigger guy. I come from a martial art background. I'm not, people don't worry me. Put your hands on me. You'll learn what consequences of your actions. I'm not, if your father didn't do it, I'll take that role for you. I'll teach you what your father should have taught you. But I've said that to many people we've had on the show that don't necessarily have my background. And just be careful. Like, you should learn to have security, because when you're recording, I've done a lot of those street interviews. You can't pay attention to everything that's happening around you. So you're actually going to those events with people that protect you.
Oh yeah. I had 3 big dudes with me when I was walking along with the march. I used to go out and just do activism by myself and hold up a Canadian or an Israeli flag in the faces of these people, and I'd have my friends with me to look out for me, but that was a lot riskier. Now that I'm, with a company, they do take really good care of us and make sure that we're protected.
So did you did the people at this rally, did they know kind of who you were in your position? Were you there in an official capacity, and what was that like?
No, they know who I am. They've known who I am for a long time, from the Bathurst and Shepherd protests, like the pro-Israel protests that were going on for so long in Toronto's Jewish neighborhood.
Yes.
I would go there, and they started to come and counter. So they know me from that. They're all uh leering and jeering my name. Oh, Scarlett Grace. Like, I'm used to it, and I just wave, and I'm like they're my biggest fans. Yeah.
Crazy.
But they know who I am. Yeah.
What do you think should happen? Because I look at this from an outside's perspective. I look at this from a guy that's traveled 30 states in the US over the past about probably 3 years. I've been all over Canada over the past few years. I don't recognize my country. Quite frankly, I don't recognize it. I don't know what this is anymore. I don't like where it's going. I have a young son, and I'm like, is this really the country I want him to grow up in? Because this is not the Canada I grew up in the 80s and the 90s. And it seems that it's happening on every single level. Like, we're talking about protests right now, but it seems like everywhere you look, I don't recognize my country. But when it comes to these type of rallies, because I'm a freedom of speech, I believe in freedom of speech 100%. 100% free speech. I don't believe that there's no such thing as hate speech, in my opinion. Unless you pass to action, there's no such thing as hate. But what do you think should be done? Because those protests you're displaying that if people show up with a different opinion, they will come at you. They will maybe attack you. I've seen people get attacked, like Darcy, for example, from Darcy Media, has been attacked before. So what do you think is the responsibility of police forces like the RCMP or the Toronto Police in this situation that tends to just let shit happens?
What was the police presence like in addition to that?
The police presence there was a lot of them, and they had the horses, and there was a lot of manpower. But I mean, even in that viral video of the guy doing the stabbing motion, you can see a police officer just looking at, they don't care. They don't care. They don't want to have to enforce anything. I don't know if it's too messy for them or what it is, but they don't want to get involved. And that's the main problem, I think, because we don't have a lack of laws against this kind of stuff. We have a lack of enforcement. The law is there. It is illegal in Canada to openly support or promote terrorism, and that is the distinction between free speech and the law. When you're openly supporting listed terrorist groups like the IRGC, like Hamas, like Hezbollah, that is against the law, and it is never ever enforced. So I don't know what the RCMP is doing, but in order for this to get better, that's the first step. They need to enforce our anti-terrorism laws, and we need mass deportations. But that's just it. We've got mullahs coming in on Pearson at
That's
Pearson
fucking wild.
Airport. You know how hard it is for immigrants to come here properly, the right way, who don't have ties to terrorism or to Islamic extreme ideology, and they just come in first class. It's
It's
crazy.
crazy. It is. It is wild. So, Scarlett, I just want to kind of circle back to something you said a few minutes ago, because you're probably also plugged into the political side of this. So we had mentioned Doug Ford trying to stop this, and you said you seem to suggest that you don't actually think he tried. Can you actually just give us a background on what his argument was, or the government of Ontario's argument was to stop that? We know it
So
obviously didn't get stopped, and what do you mean about you don't think he actually tried?
well, 8 years
Very
ago, he
interesting.
tweeted, I think in 2018 or 2019, 2018, that he wanted that he was going to put an end to Al-Quds Day. It's still there. You can still see it. Years and years ago, he said this, and every year it's gone by with nothing, no attempt to stop it,
Mhm.
until finally this year, with, I guess, the push of the U.S. consulate being shot at, with obvious
Yeah.
parallels to all the other shootings. Like it's very obvious that who I don't want to say it's obvious who's behind it, but what their mentality is obvious. Whether they are
Yes.
linked to IRGC agents in Canada or not, we don't know. But I guess because that just happened, he's like, well, I guess I better do something about it. So the day before, he announces that he's going to submit an injunction to try and get it stopped, which he doesn't file until the day of at noon, 3 hours before the protest is supposed to go on a
Yeah,
Saturday. He
that makes
announces this on a
sense.
Friday and says he's doing it on a Saturday. That doesn't sound like you're really trying to me. That sounds performative, like, oh, I better look like I'm doing something,
Aw,
because that's
shucks.
not
They
going to
said
go through.
no. I did what I could. I'm hungry.
And you're right, it's in 2018. Ontario Premier-elect say he will ban anti-Semitic Quds Day. Clearly, 6 years later, still not banned. And you're right, he actually filed it on the Saturday, and somehow the Ontario court responded before the protest. I'm very impressed at the speed that the Ontario government's able to work when they want to. That was very impressive. But I just can't believe it's very, even though I'm used to this, even though we talk about this stuff all the time, we talk about everything that's going on in Canada, it still baffles me when I see events like this. They're still taking place and they're going viral all over the place. And there is a massive amount of Iranians in Canada. You're talking 200, between 200 and 300,000, somewhere along those lines. Just like, there's a lot of Lebanese. I'm from Montreal. There's a lot of Lebanese here that immigrated from Lebanon when the same thing that happened in Iran happened to Lebanon. They got taken over by Muslims and they fled. They're just, yep, nope, we're going to go somewhere else. What is it going to take for Canadians to start listening to those people that say, guys, wake up? They are not here to obey the law. They're here, just like the Quran says, they're here to infiltrate, and then when they hit about 10%, that's what the estimates that you hear all the time by historians. When they hit about that 10% of the population, they've infiltrated enough of higher position. Just look at what's happening in New York right now. You literally have an open Muslim saying, he had Ramadan celebration in City Hall of New York, the most iconic city in the US. It's hard for me, again, to believe. But what is it going to take, in your opinion, for Canadians and Americans to actually wake up that this is not a coincidence, this is done on purpose, and that is what they do?
I don't think the left is going to wake up until it's too late. I've been screaming from the rooftops for the last few years, listen to Iranians. And nobody is. And they see the same patterns with what happened to their country, over almost 50 years ago. They see the same thing here. It's called, what their last Shah called, the unholy alliance of the red and the black, the far left and Islamism. And we're welcoming it with open doors, and they are very scared for the future of Canada. And we need to listen to them. They've seen it before. But I don't know how to make people listen. I don't know how to make people wake up. I wish I did. I would have done it years ago, but they just keep trucking along in their own worlds.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Do you now, as far as sizes of these protests goes, do you know what this year is compared to years past? I suspect it might. There's a good chance it might be higher just because of all this extra energy that the pro-Palestinian crowd has whipped up, and obviously the Iranian war has whipped up people. But what was the attendance like?
For the Al-Quds side, shockingly, it was lower than usual.
Really? Wow.
And I was very surprised by that because
Nice.
again, I thought they'd be emboldened. Shootings, nobody caught the guy yet. Couldn't get canceled, but maybe Ford's words were effective in some way. I really don't know, but it was smaller than years past. I've been the last 3 years or so to it, and then because of the war in Iran and with activism kind of being kicked up on the freedom side of Iranians, they had a huge counter protest that I think definitely outweighed the hate march in
Wow.
numbers. So that was actually a positive thing. I'd
Nice.
say there
Good
was
to
like
see.
maybe 200-ish Al-Quds participants, which is much smaller than usual.
That's not a bad news to me. If you ask me,
No,
that's
that's
good
great
news. But Scarlett, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add. If
Anything you
there's
need to
something
plug?
you want our listeners, you want them to know, anything you want to plug, it'd be the time to do so.
I think just to go back to my point is listen to Iranians. They have a lot of really insightful things to say about Canada. Again, pattern recognition, what they've seen before happen with their country. Listen to their warnings, but not just that, to their stories, and get to know them because they're like the greatest people you'll ever meet. They are the most wonderful group of people. I'm obsessed with Iranians. I love them. And they are like the perfect example of an immigrant that comes here properly and contributes.
Mhm.
And if Iran becomes free and they all go home, it'll be a great loss for Canada because then what are we going to be stuck with? A bunch of Islamists. It's like, so listen to Iranians, listen to your immigrants, and I encourage anybody who might be a little more ignorant as to what's going on in Iran to educate yourselves a bit more. But follow Iranian influencers. You can follow me. I'm sharing information about that too. There's really a lot to learn, and it's really important right now.
Scarlett, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for taking the last minute invitation. But thanks for what you do, and hopefully we have you back on.
I appreciate the time, Scarlett. What was
Thank you for having me.
your X handle, just or Instagram, or wherever you want people to follow you at?
Twitter is Scarlett Grace 92, and Instagram is Scarlett Grace Music.
Okay, perfect.
'Cause I
I
play
appreciate
music.
your time, Scarlett. It was a great chat.
Okay. Thank you for having
Bye,
me.
Scarlett.
Have a great
Absolutely. Bye.
Good chat.
There you have it. Yeah,
Nice.
I wanted to take a comment. Chris H is saying, hold on. Chris H is saying, you guys unfortunately don't understand Al-Quds or from the river to the sea. Those statements are cries for human rights. Murdering. Okay, listen. I really don't care what you think about Jews, what you think about what's going on in the Middle East, what you think is the winning side and the losing side, who's right, who's wrong. Personally, I don't really give a fuck what's going on over there. I care about what happens to Canada. That being said, you cannot tell me that you want to eradicate a population and call it human rights. It is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. It doesn't make any fucking sense, Chris.
Yeah,
Come on.
From the river to the sea, there's an explicit assumption that you're getting rid of all the Jews there. I promise you, they are not talking about resettling the Jews in a nice area. And even if they were, that's still genocide, forcibly resettling people. And you can make whatever arguments you want. There are probably reasonable people on both sides of that issue. I personally I don't really give a shit one way or the other. I think there's both sides are pretty garbage, to be honest. But yeah, you got to know about, this is not about human rights when they say from the river to the sea. It's interesting how a lot of far leftists will have beliefs, but they have to sugarcoat it in ways to get the regular liberals to go along. Regular liberals are not really going to go along if you talk about murdering Jews, but that is what they mean. the far leftists, the anarchists, the pro-Pally crowd. It is about, getting rid of Israel by any means necessary. And then they'll kind of sugarcoat it. They know they can't say that, so they'll sugarcoat it in words like human rights so that the normie liberals will go along with it. But that's basically what's going on there.
The only reason I'm talking about what's going on in Iran, or I'm going to talk about what's going on in Israel, is if it affects Canada directly. Outside of that, that problem has been going on for over 1,000 years. It's never gonna be fixed, if you ask me, and it does not impact my life in the slightest. So, if it impacts Canada, we talk about it. It's a problem. Those people shouldn't be here, and I don't care that you're Jewish, that you're from Iran, whatever country you come from. If you're recognized as being part of a terrorist organization, I don't want you here. I really don't care the color of your skin, your religion. I don't give a fuck. I don't want you here. You could be a Sikh, you could be whatever you want. I don't care. I don't want you here. It's really simple. It's not complicated at all. I want Canada first. That's it.
I mean, yeah, and like, I hear Republic of Alberta says Israel started every war in the Middle East for 80 years. I mean, that's certainly debatable. But let's just, for sake of arguments, say maybe they did. I don't think anyone's arguing that Israel is some moral, really like
high ground.
Moral high ground, sort of like some model state that we should be looking at, a bastion of human rights. Frankly, when you look at what Islam is doing globally right now, I kind of think it's a good thing to have someone in there to keep that part of the world in check that is not going to put up with that shit. As far as values go, values within the country of Israel are exponentially more similar to what any normie liberal would consider to be the right way to live, compared to the values, the morals, the laws in almost any Arab nation, which basically have women as property encoded into fucking law. It's got they're hanging gays there in most Muslim countries. And if Israel is going to act as a check on some level on that the spread of that force of Islamic, because as Nico said, it is a political system. It is not a religion to them. They are intending to spread it. They just listen to them. They keep telling us that's what they're going to do. They keep saying this is what they're here in the West to do. We need to fucking listen to them. They want to spread their way of life, their culture, their religion, and they will do it at the ballot box if they have to. If they can, they'll do it by violence if they have to, but they will do it. And if there's a country out in that part of the world that's maybe not the nicest guy on the block, but he's going to keep that evil in check, yeah, I'm okay with that. I don't have a problem with that.
I'm going to take, we're waiting for our next guest to show up. His staff just reached out to me saying just to confirm that they were using the same link, so he should be on soon. But I just wanted to take another comment from Chris saying, no, Nico, Rob, have you ever heard of the Nakba and how much resources Canada provides to Israel in military hardware? Chris Sky knows this stuff. Please talk to him. He knows what I know. I don't give a fuck. Again, I don't know how much clearer I can be.
I don't to support Israel
that's
militarily. I
want. Okay, first thing, one does not make the other okay. The fact that Canada and the US support Israel doesn't give the right to Iranians to say, or Palestinians to say that they want river to the sea. One does not equate the other. I'm against both. At the end of the day, man, I care about Canada. I don't think we should be giving any money to any foreign countries, whatever they are. Zero, nothing. Zero. I want us to take care of Canadians. Plain and fucking simple. I don't like that 25% of Canadians are struggling to afford food. I don't like that the average Canadian pays 42.3% in taxes and keep seeing his money going to places that should never go. I care about Canadians. I don't care about other countries right now. I could not give two fucks about other countries. We are in shit in Canada, and we need to deal with the shit that's happening right here. I don't care about the rest of the world. If it impacts Canada directly, then I care, and that's why we had Scarlett to speak about it, because these type of rallies should not be happening in Canada. We shouldn't have those type of individuals being able to come to Canada and participate in those type of rallies legally. It makes no sense. Absolutely no sense. And I'll leave it as at that. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to this, but I make it very clear from the get-go. I'm for neither. I'm for Canada. That's it.
Yes.
That's all I'm for.
Yeah. I agree with everything. I just said final quick comment before we go over to John. Public says, Public Alberta, Canada gets flooded with refugees because of Israel's war. Well, I mean, that's our own stupid fault for having terrible immigration policies, and we need to put a stop to that ASAP.
I agree completely. Guys, we talked about what happened in Toronto over the weekend about the Al-Quds rally and the fact that we had, as per Scarlett Grace said, 3 Shia cleric, 3 Shia cleric in Canada being part of that protest is absolutely insane. And now we're going to talk about one of the other biggest problem, if not the biggest problem Canada is facing right now, freedom of speech. So we are joined by friend of the show and president of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, John Carpay, to speak about the latest development of Bill C-9. Mr. Carpay, how are you, sir?
John, how's it going, sir?
Hey, good evening. Glad to be with you guys and all your viewers and listeners. Bonsoir. Bill C-9 has passed the House of Commons and is on its way to the Senate.
Wow.
So not enough Canadians contacted their MPs in the past 4 months because even the government MPs, they do get cold feet and they tell their party leader, you know, we can't do this, right? That's what happened with the Bill C-2, the Strong Borders Act. It got put on the back burner because there was so much opposition. C-9, the opposition has been less strong than against the Strong Borders Act. So here we are.
Okay, hold on, John. It left committee last week. You're saying that it's already been debated, and when was it debated? Today? How the hell did I
think it was debated. Look, I stand to be corrected because, you know, who do you trust? You could look on the internet. You got to take everything with a grain of salt. So I stand to be corrected. My understanding is that it was voted on and passed on Friday the 13th, and it's on its way to the Senate. And I apologize. I should have called Andrew Lawton, Member of Parliament, before coming on the show just to confirm that. But that's my understanding right now.
And honestly, if it hasn't yet, it will probably by tomorrow, because this I don't think there's any doubt that this was going to pass.
Yeah, with the bloc, you know, getting its amendment to get rid of the exemption from hate speech prosecution for religious speech in good faith. The bloc wanted that. The Liberals said yes. So it's between the Liberals and the bloc, unless a lot of MPs last minute got. If it had been defeated, we would have heard about it.
Yeah, it's definitely has not been defeated. No.
Nah, yeah, because you scared me there for a second, because I'm following all the updates on this. It hasn't been back to the House of Commons. It was on Friday, March the 13th. It left committee, because literally, I think it was Andrew Lawton that said that it took 25 minutes or 35 minutes because they voted on all the amendments and there was no debates allowed. So it was literally yay, nay. So it left the committee. It's going to be back on the House of Commons. And that was a question I had for you from experience. Considering that it's going back to the House of Commons, they limited debate, so they will only have 1 day, 1 question period to debate, to review the bill, the last version of the bill, to debate it, and to vote on it. So we know that sometime this week, at a maximum next week, this bill is going to end up to the Senate. So how long does that process normally takes from, if we assume that it takes 1 day in the House of Commons, then it's kicked to the Senate, and then the Senate is going to pass it. It's 95% assigned by Trudeau. So this is just going to go through like uncontested. So is it possible that by the end of the month, we could see this become law, that we've had royal assent as well?
Well, the Senate is master of its own proceedings. So how quickly or slowly the Senate wants to deal with this bill is really up to them. They do You know, when former Prime Minister Trudeau illegally invoked the Emergencies Act in February of 2022, 4 years ago, one of the reasons why that emergency lasted only a few days was because the Senate was the rumors, the reporting was that the Senate did not share Mr. Trudeau's enthusiasm. They saw through this, that this was not truly a national emergency that really justifies using the Emergencies Act to use emergency measures. The Senate saw through it, and the Trudeau, there are people who say, who were watching it very closely, that Trudeau ended the national emergency very quickly because he was going to lose a vote in the Senate. The senators were not going to go along with this. The other thing is that he doesn't have the same party discipline control. If you are a Liberal member of Parliament, the Prime Minister kind of holds a gun to your head and says, effectively says, you had better be my obedient servant, otherwise you will never, ever get into cabinet. Now, in the Senate, these people are not going to be in cabinet anyway, except under highly unusual circumstances, like 1979 election when Joe Clark won the election but didn't have any MPs from Quebec, or maybe one. He needed some more Quebec cabinet ministers, so I think that anyway, they appointed a senator to be a cabinet minister, but that's a rare.
It's not common. Yeah,
it's not common, right? So Trudeau doesn't hold and now Carney doesn't hold that same level of influence. That said, I'm sure this bill will clear the Senate.
Yeah, I think that would be the shock of the lifetime, especially because I suspect most of them actually genuinely agree with it. They probably actually think it's a good bill.
Oh yeah. You get woke social justice warriors like Chris Wells, who are, who's not a friend of free speech, who will, gleefully vote in favor of this and any other restrictions on free speech.
Well, especially those kind of woke liberals, the elites of society that are insulated from the actual, right? They don't give a shit about, say, actual rising crime because they live in the gated communities and they don't care about this stuff. But what they do care about is looking good at the dinner parties and the cocktail parties, and opposing hate speech it's a big winner in that world, right?
Yeah.
Who could oppose hate speech without even getting into the bill itself?
So one of the things that came out last Friday, Roman Barber, if I'm not mistaken, that was part of the Justice Committee from the Conservative side. He was there with Andrew Lawton. He said that obviously the bill cleared committee. It's going to go back to the House of Commons. But he said that there was a small win. Small win being that definition of hate speech that we've been talking about, greater than disdain, has been removed from the bill itself, that it is no longer part of Bill C-9. But one of the things that you've said on this show many times is that there's, and I'm paraphrasing obviously, but there is a somewhat of a definition of hatred that has been used. It might not be in the criminal code per se, but it is something that judges have used, and it's something, if I'm not mistaken, that was based on the 1990 Supreme Court ruling R versus Keystra, and there is somewhat of a definition, intense or extreme emotion. But one of the things that you've mentioned in the past is that the reason that hate speech has not been criminally, how can I say it? There's not a lot of people that have been impacted by hate speech. There are not a lot of people that are in jail for it, although there's a few, but it doesn't happen very often because the Attorney General needs to sign off on the actual hate speech request. But one of the things that is still
that's still there, which is a win. It was one of the wins that the Conservatives secured, was that they're now and that was, I think, arguably the worst aspect of Bill C-9 has actually gone away, because now there still has to be the consent of the Attorney General before a prosecution can can proceed against a Canadian. So it's not just the local police, local prosecutors, maybe responding to local pressures. It's got to go to the Attorney General of the province. And just the very fact that there is a review process, it puts the brakes on it. And so we're not going to, thankfully, that provision stays put.
Some good news.
But good faith is gone. That we know that was the deal the Liberals had to make with the Bloc Québécois in order to pass this paper motion, in order to pass that bill C-9 through. We know that's gone. There's no more protection under Section 319 for the good faith protection, or I think there was a cool term.
The religious
priest
defense.
or pastor.
Yes.
If you
that's
were
gone.
expressing an opinion based on belief in a religious text, it offered additional protection to, say, Catholic priests, Orthodox Jewish rabbis, Muslim imams, conservative evangelical Christian pastors, that if you were teaching from the Torah, the Bible, the Quran, and you were talking about homosexuality or transgenderism, that you had additional protection against a hate speech prosecution. We'll have to wait and see how this plays itself out, because what governments usually do, they pass bad laws and then they wait for a year or 2 or 3 or 4 before they start the enforcement. I mean, for example, when Bill C-11 passed, the Online Streaming Act, and it actually gave the CRTC, the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission, it gave the CRTC legal authority over the internet in Canada in 2023. What are the terrible results that we've seen so far? Well, nothing yet, right? They're not totally stupid. So they pass terrible laws, but then they don't start the next day to enforce them in the worst possible way.
You'll ease it in, so hopefully you don't notice.
Just ease it in. So,
but the question I was going to ask you, though, about the good faith, as I was getting ready for this, I was thinking, and in order for me, and I'm not saying I would ever do that, but for somebody to accuse someone of hate speech, you must understand what they're saying. You must understand the language that they're speaking. And if good faith is a legal defense that religious groups have been using in order not to get in trouble for hate speech for what is in the Bible, for example, do you honestly believe that the government would apply these type of legislation equally across the board, considering what's been happening to Christians? And the reason I'm saying this, it's easy to hear somebody talk in English about the Bible that most people have an understanding or at least know somewhat of, and report that as hate speech. I don't speak Arabic. You could put me in a place where they're talking about the Quran. I have no idea what they're saying. So do you honestly believe that this could be used across the board, or do you envision certain groups being more equal than others?
Look, we've seen the double standard or triple standard, quadruple standard. There was this preacher in Montreal some years ago. You've probably seen the clip. I don't remember the date, but it was some guy. He was speaking in Arabic, and it was something about, death to the Jews, death to Israel. And he wasn't even quoting from, well, I don't know if he was quoting from the Quran or not. I think probably not. He wasn't charged criminally anyway. So a lot of this is a symbolic thing where the Bloc is, saying, look, the Bloc Québécois is arguing we have to get rid of this so-called religious defense. Well, it wasn't the imam in Montreal who was saying something like, death to the Jews. He wasn't charged criminally anyway, but the reason he wasn't charged criminally had nothing to do with whether or not it was religious from the Quran, yes or no. But the double standards are scary, okay? You see, for example, the Aboriginals protesting against residential schools. In broad daylight, with police watching, they publicly vandalized a large statue of Queen Victoria at the legislature in Manitoba, tore it down. This is criminal. to legally, you can destroy your own property if you want to. If you want to take a baseball bat to your own car, go ahead and do that. If you take a baseball bat to somebody else's car, not only does that incur civil liability, it's also criminal offense to destroy property that is not your own. So public property destruction by Aboriginals, tearing down a statue of Queen Victoria, and the police are fine, and the prosecutors announced a few weeks later, we're not pressing charges. They get Tamara Lich, Chris Barber in Ottawa protesting for the wrong cause. They're against the vaccine passports and the lockdowns, etc. And so they're criminally accused of obstructing access to some roads, which is a criminal code offense. If you if you obstruct or interfere with the lawful use and enjoyment of property, then that's a crime. If I block you from getting into your car, or if I stand between you and the door to your house, if I physically obstruct you from going where you want to go, that's one of the forms of mischief, and it is criminal conduct. So they come down very, very hard on Tamara Lich and Chris Barber with the big prosecution, spent probably millions of dollars, even while there's accused murderers and rapists are walking away because the Crown says they don't have enough money for that. But they spend huge sums of money to prosecute Chris Barber and Tamara Lich over the criminal obstruction interference, but not the Aboriginals who are tearing down a statue of Queen Victoria in broad daylight. I can give you many more examples. So that's the problem with the whole hate speech laws. They're not going to be enforced. I would say it's unlikely that they will be enforced against Muslims. It's unlikely.
100% correct.
Because that would be Islamophobic, right? And everything's political. Yeah. We saw this. Here's the other example. Okay, there's Muslims praying in the streets in Toronto, shutting down a street, which is a criminal code. That's the same thing that Tamara Lich and Chris Barber stand accused of, is that they shut down. They did keep a lane open for emergency vehicles, but if you had two lanes, maybe one of the two lanes was shut down in Ottawa with the Freedom Convoy. So they're criminally charged. You get a bunch of Muslims praying in Toronto, shutting down the streets. There's no criminal charges.
They get police protection.
There's a double standard.
They get police protection for that. And if you yell at them while they're doing that, they will arrest you. They'll get you for harassment. And it's insane. It's wild. We cover that all the time on this show. You can't have different rules for different groups.
We do in Canada now. We do in Canada. So that's just. So the law itself is not necessarily that terrifying. I probably shouldn't be saying that in my position, but in and of itself, the law is not necessarily that terrifying, but it's the enforcement that is going to be unequal. And we know that. We know that from the whole attitude. Even in March of 2020, you had these pro-environment, pro-Aboriginal people who believe that mankind controls the weather, and they're shutting down shipping lines and railways and so on. And Trudeau says, I want to meet with these people. I want to sit down and meet with them. Why? Because they're protesting for Aboriginal rights and against, climate change. And then it's like, okay, well, we want to sit down and talk with you. But if you were doing exactly the same behavior because you're against abortion, or you're against high taxes, or you're against lockdowns, you're against vaccine passports, there is not going to be any mercy or leniency shown. You're going to be immediately arrested and handcuffed and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. This is where we're at in Canada today.
That's wild.
Is your organization going to help the first few people that are going to get caught with this? Because this, to me, I'm not as optimistic as you are. I'm very pessimistic when it comes to this. And I don't think they're going to wait years to do so. I think this is going to come. The first cases are going to come extremely fast, especially that they're just waiting for Bill C-9 to push Bill C-63, and now I have to sit down and read Bill C-22, which is supposed to be completely atrocious. I haven't read it yet, but everywhere we go, it doesn't matter that it's C2, C8, C12, C9, C16, now C6, C22, and the new C63. I really hope that guys like you are in your organization are going to help the few, because they're going to make an example out of this. I got a feeling that they're going to catch a few ones at the beginning, and those ones are going to become the Chris Barber and the Tamara Leach of the Freedom Convoy. But I don't know that they're going to get away with not going to prison this time, though, because they need to set an example.
I agree. It's likely, and that achieves their goal of a chilling effect, right? That if one pastor, one priest, one rabbi is getting criminally prosecuted, even if they're acquitted at the end of the day, because a fair-minded judge looks at it and says, look, your sermon saying that gay sex is sinful, the sermon that you delivered in your house of worship was not criminal hate speech. Even if that's the ruling of the judge, it's the whole prosecution is going to frighten the other pastors and rabbis and priests and whatnot. So we would look. We try to take on as many cases as possible. We've got about a dozen lawyers across the country taking on cases from BC to Newfoundland, every province in between. We have a full-time lawyer in Montreal doing work in Quebec as well. And if somebody comes to us seeking our help, we try to take on as many cases as possible.
Yeah, there's
don't say that it's going to come out of Montreal. Come on, John. Don't say that the first case. I don't want to be part of the first case.
Yeah,
don't you? Yeah,
it seems like the government's really short-sighted on this, because Islam, more than almost any other groups, is there's going to be some video somewhere that's unambiguously breaking this law on hate speech. There's going to be some imam somewhere filmed about death to America, death to Israel, kill this, kill that, and it's going to be really hard for them to if they're asked, well, why, if these guys are in jail, why are you not arresting this guy? And they're certainly setting themselves up for a bit of egg on the face. Not that the mainstream media will ever bring that up, but there's enough alternate media that it'll get out there.
If you give government these kinds of powers, it's going to be directed at whichever minority is the least popular with the governing elites. Yep. So I think I would venture a guess Christians are less popular than Muslims with the governing elites. There's a saying I read the other day. I wished I could remember the author, but he says if you want to know who's in charge of society, if you want to know who the powerful people are, take a look at what you cannot say freely in society, and then that will reveal who the what the powerful.
Everybody knows you can shit on Christians, right? You can shit on black men, you can shit on those groups, but you can't shit on Muslims. You can't shit on Indigenous people. You can't LGBTQ. Trans. You can shit on. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, definitely trans. I was gonna say you can kind of shit on the gays, but you better not shit on the trans. It's woke, right?
There's one more question I wanted to ask you before I let you go, because this is something that I've complained quite a lot. Do you think the Conservatives as a whole, like the party, did enough on Bill C-9? Because I saw that video last Friday released by Roman Barber and Andrew Layton, and they're kind of saying we did, and Brock, Larry Brock, I think is his name. I never remember what his full name is. But they're kind of saying, "Oh, we went to war for you guys. We fought and blah 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 blah." And all I can hear is blah 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 blah. Because the first thing that always matters in these type of cases is education, is being out there educating it's great if you say you're doing a lot of stuff behind closed doors. I don't really care, because you're not changing. Clearly, one, it didn't really work, and two, you didn't change public opinion. Do you think they did enough? Because it really bothers me that you got Pierre Poilievre that never addressed it, that let a bunch of backbenchers do his job when we're not just talking about a tiny bill that doesn't really matter. We're talking about a bill that can reframe Canada and turn us into the UK. And it seems that the opposition leader didn't do anything about it to make it, to inform the population. If I was in his shoes, I would have been talking about this every day, all day, nothing else since September. I think it was tabled like September 20th or September 25th last year. Do you think there's a responsibility that the conservative or the right-leaning individuals need to take on this one for this bill passing because we didn't educate people enough?
It's kind of hypothetical, right? Like how much, look, the government backed down on the Bill C-2, the Strong Borders Act, which I think should be called the Strong Surveillance Act. They've backed down on that. But there was opposition from Canadians across the spectrum. You had Michael Geist, who's a law prof at the University of Ottawa, who is very knowledgeable and articulate. I don't think he would. I don't know the man, but I would venture a guess he would not call himself right wing or conservative. But he was against the bill. The Canadian Civil Liberties was against the bill. It was like from all over, from right, left, center, from so many different quarters. There were so many people that came out against Bill C-2, and there were enough Canadians who contacted their member of parliament, and then the Liberals put it on the back burner, and but now they're bringing forward part of it with Bill C-22, which we can maybe talk about another time because we're short on time tonight. So all of that to say, if Pierre Poilievre had been talking about Bill C-9, every day or every second day for the past 4 months, it's hypothetical. What kind of an impact would that have had on the public opinion? Would that have generated enough pressure of the same kind that we got against Bill C-2? It looks like we are in a situation where the government's only going to back down. I hope I'm wrong, but it looks like the government's only going to back down if the stereotypically like left wing, and I don't like to use left and right, but if the left wing groups and the right wing groups are opposed to something, right, then the government sits up and takes notice and they tend to withdraw. If the government perceives it as only the conservatives, only the right wing that is opposing it, the government says, whatever, those people don't vote for us anyway. Yeah. So
although I would have to push back on this one because this is not happening on the gun ban. I built a tracker that's following all the police forces in Canada, all the municipality that said no. I mapped it. 9 out of all the provinces in Canada are against it. Outside of Quebec and BC, which BC kind of alluded that they wouldn't force anybody to do it. They didn't say we wouldn't, but we won't force the police force.
That's the police forces, though, right? That's not necessarily the local politicians.
No, but the point in the matter is that gun rights in Canada is extremely right. There's no leftist out there in Canada that believes in gun rights. It's a very right the left are asking to ban more and more. Our government wants to ban more and more. Yet it's only righties they're talking for it, but extremely organized. We have a lot of lobby group like the CCFR, the NFA, the CCSA, Caliber Magazine that's talking about this, and I would be surprised if the gun ban's extended. They're not going to cancel it because they don't want to lose face, but they have no numbers. It's like 1.6% of guns that are considered prohibited as per the estimates out there have been registered, if you will, through their gun amnesty, and we're talking, we're 2 weeks away from the end. All I'm saying is it's still possible, even if it's just right-leaning individuals, to do something, because I just think it came down to education. That's why I talked about it so much. That's why we had you here so many times. But I don't see political parties that have done their jobs on this one at all. Nobody can convince me that they did.
I would challenge you there. It's not black and white. Okay, if you have somebody who is very intelligent, very articulate, very persuasive, Andrew Lawton for one. And there's other people. There's Marion Gladue. There's Shuv Majumdar, who happens to be my own member of parliament for the area of Calgary where I live. When you have, look, a leader can't do everything Okay. Like when I'm running the Justice Center, there's all kinds of stuff going on that, you know, thankfully, like the lawyers are running all the court cases. I'm not involved in that at all. I have no involvement in how they run the court cases on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, for example, right? So, you know, I'm not saying that Pierre, you know, necessarily did the right thing or not, but I am saying that in any situation, on any political issue, if a leader of a political party, if you have effective spokespeople that are mastering a file that they know really, really well. So here, if Pierre Poilievre is delegating to Andrew Lawton and other MPs and they're doing a good job, I don't know if it's necessarily fair to fault him for not, you know, taking the lead on the file, because C-9, obvious, yes, it's bad, but there's so many things going on, right? This is not the only thing going on in Canadian political life.
Yeah.
But where I'm going to push back, I'm enjoying this. I wish that would have happened 20 minutes ago. But where I would push back to what you said is if they're doing a good job, and obviously they didn't. Because it all starts with education. This is my whole point, is you change people's opinions by education. And if you ask people that are not politically savvy, they're not involved in politics day in, day out like we are, and you ask them, hey, have you heard of Bill C-9? 99% of people are going to look at you, what's Bill C-9? Never heard about it. And that is the fault of
do you think they've done a good job, John?
Oh, what a great question, Rob. So simple, but yet so effective. Do you think
that like Andrew Lawton has done a good job and the rest of the Conservatives?
Yes. I think Andrew Lawton has done a good job on this for sure. I have not, you know, had the time to look closely at other MPs that have done this. It's hypothetical. Okay, if they had placed more emphasis on this, then, you know, possibly, yes, more people would have been alerted and would have become mobilized. But I go back to this other point that it seems to be a situation where the Liberals will back down when they see opposition across the political spectrum. Mm-hmm. Then they kind of sit up and take notice. Maybe, and I'm theorizing here, I don't pretend to know what's going on in the hearts and minds of these 300 and something members of parliament, but maybe they saw this as well. The only real opposition to Bill C-9 is coming from people who are voting Conservative anyways. Okay, maybe that's what they were thinking. And then if more had been done, I don't know. It's hypothetical. We don't know.
They may have made the calculation it was going to pass. They may have some insider information that they know it was going to pass anyways. But yeah, I certainly can see the argument that, you know, more awareness should have been raised, even if they knew it would pass. Just sort of like to get at least get it in the minds of people. But yeah, I guess we'll see how it goes. I think everyone's in agreement it's going to pass.
But before I let you go, John, what I was trying to say is that, and this is something I complained about, Andrew Lawton made it about religion. He made it the main driving point that they had the whole way through is that good faith component that they were going after that could be removed.
after the Liberals made the deal with the Bloc, because before that they opposed it on other grounds.
But they've been talking about this for months. Like the deal with the Bloc deal, we were talking about this last year. Like this is something that was happening behind closed doors that just came a reality in the committee last week. But this is something we knew was a possibility a long time ago. But what I was going to say is, as a Christian, I looked at this bill. My biggest concern was not the good faith portion. Because if you can accuse me of hate, no matter my religion, it don't matter. If more than disdain, that's your only preface on hate, it really doesn't matter that I'm saying it in church or I'm saying it quoting the Bible. If I say it, I'm in trouble. But the point I'm trying to make is that they went for religious people. They kind of tried, as soon as that became a rumor at the beginning that the Bloc would take a deal, and that was months ago, they didn't drive the point of regular people. Because if, let's say that you're right, I will take your assumption that you're right, that the left and the right needs to be joined for a government to take notice. You know what? In most cases, you're probably right. Let's take that assumption and say that that's correct. How do you bring the left and the right together, not by talking about religion, because you're not talking about the right type of things. They don't care about religion, especially not Christians. How could they have managed that narrative by saying that it will affect anybody no matter your religion? Just look at the UK. Grandmothers are being arrested for posting on Facebook, and those women are not. But this is my point. They could have done a better job, in my opinion. Their marketing, it sucks to call it marketing, but the message that you're putting out there was wrong, and it was wrong for a long time, and they need to take responsibility as well, because I don't think they did a good job at all.
Okay. I don't have a strong opinion on it, because on the question of whether the Conservatives did a good job or not, I think Andrew Lawton in particular, he released videos multiple times. He is eloquent. He explains it. And they push back. I think the worst thing about Bill C-9 is that getting rid of the requirement for the approval of the Attorney General, if that was in the bill that got passed, now you can have local police just going crazy. Yeah. And if there's a lot of complaints about somebody's speech, and I've seen this happen before, police respond to complaints. So without the review of the Attorney General, it creates this dynamic where if in Halifax or Montreal or Saskatoon or Victoria, if there's a lot of people complaining about Mark Smith is saying something hateful, and the police get a whole bunch of complaints, they're going to prosecute Mark Smith in response to the public complaints. But fortunately, the Conservatives push back. And so we still have this provision that if the prosecutors want to prosecute Mark Smith, they need the permission of the Attorney General. So there's a review process in place. So that was the worst part of it that would really make us more like the United Kingdom. Mm-hmm. In its current form, it's compared to the evil of the law that's on the books. Here's the thing that people don't realize. Some people, they respond to Bill C-9 as if we're going from no hate speech laws at all, and then all of a sudden we're criminalizing hate speech. No, these bad laws have been on the books for decades. Okay, this makes the bad law a little bit worse. But the real issue is, why do we have arbitrary laws when it's fine? You can promote hatred against lawyers and doctors and nurses and environmentalists. You can promote hatred against landowners and factory owners. You can promote hatred against wealthy people, businessmen. You can promote hatred against environmentalists. The list of people, the list of identifiable groups that you can promote hatred against is endless. Okay? The Trudeau did it with people not getting the vaccine. He said, these are extremist, anti-science, racist, misogynist people. He's promoting hatred against Canadians who didn't get injected with the COVID vaccine. Totally legal. But then all of a sudden, if you're promoting hatred against somebody because of their skin color, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, well, now the state steps in and says, oh, well, you could spend many years in jail. Hey,
yeah.
Why? Why is it okay to promote hatred against Canadians who didn't get injected with a COVID vaccine? Why is that totally legal? As I think it should be, by the way. If you think that those, that they're terrible people who made a terrible decision, whatever. But why is that okay? But then suddenly if it's, you promote somebody because they're LGBTQ or they're Muslim or they're Jewish or they're black or they're this or that, well, that's a crime. You could go to jail. Why the distinction?
Yeah, exactly.
All I want to say, John, is I think you're mistaken when it comes to the Attorney General, because I'm pretty sure that was removed. That it is no longer part of the bill, that police, because that was one of the problems I believe was.
That's what John's saying. It was removed. That was the bad part.
No,
was removed.
No, he's saying that the Attorney General consent is still required as it is right now. That is because don't see, this is why you don't see a lot of problem. Well, a lot. You don't see that many people compared to the UK. But if I'm not mistaken, John, you're mistaken. The AG portion has been removed from the latest version of Bill C-9. We haven't seen it yet, but that is what I'm pretty sure that's what some of the videos from the Conservatives have said.
Look, Andrew I spoke with Andrew Lawton last week. Okay, so he's in Ottawa. He knows more about this than I do. He said that the Conservatives succeeded in getting the provision to get rid of Attorney General consent, that part of Bill C-9, the Conservatives persuaded the Liberals to not move ahead with that. And so he said that was a victory. He may have said it was the only victory that the Conservatives got. Now, today I printed off from the House of Commons website, I printed off the legislation, and it said at the top, this is like the text as voted on in the House of Commons after review. I don't have the exact wording, after review by the committee. So it's out of committee before the House of Commons. Here is the latest, okay? And so in this latest, there is still the requirement that the Attorney General still needs to be needs to consent.
Okay, so that was put back in. Is that the?
But let me look at it further and get back to you. I mean, I don't.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I'm right, but
I hope you're right. I really hope you're right, and I hope you're right, and I'm wrong. But it seems that there were two portions. The private, if it's a private prosecution, the AG needs to sign off. But if it is the police or the Crown, it's Crown prosecution, they're able to go ahead without the AG. This is the latest information I had, but I haven't seen the bill that they're going to debate in the House of Commons yet. As soon as it's available, I'm going to read it. But this is all I'm saying. This is all hearsay at this point. I have no proof. That's just what I heard, and that was the problem, because I remember you've said this many times that was one of the biggest problem, if not the biggest problem with Bill C-9. And if they remove the hatred portion, like the more than disdained, and they remove the AG consent is still part of it, as you said, it's not as problematic. It still is. No hate laws should be ever put in place, but I hope I'm wrong. And if you can confirm if I'm right or wrong on this one, because I really want to know if the information I'm getting is right or
I hear you.
Hopefully it is wrong.
Okay.
Hopefully you're right, John. Hopefully you're right. I don't often want to be wrong, but this time I do.
I hear you.
I appreciate you, John.
Yeah,
Thanks for
appreciate you, John.
Thanks for the
coming on.
pushbacks. I always appreciate when people tell me I'm wrong or want to push back on my opinion. It makes things very interesting for me. I like to learn.
Yep.
I know you're wrong, but I like the pushback, John. I really enjoy it.
Well, thanks for having
As
me on your
always-
show again. And
appreciate it,
à la prochaine.
It's always a pleasure, John. Thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of your
Thanks
day.
for yours. You too.
Bye,
Bye for now.
See you, John. Yeah, good chat. Always glad to have him on.
He's one of those guys that I can disagree with. I just like him.
Oh yeah.
No matter what, I just like the guy. And
Yep, he's a cool guy.
but I like the pushbacks, though. I like the pushbacks. I like when people question me and say
makes
you're wrong.
for.
And I hope I'm wrong. No, but I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah,
There's certain cases I want to be wrong, and this one I want to be wrong.
Well,
I really
Googled
hope
this.
I'm wrong.
I googled it, and it's AI says it talked about repealing it, but it doesn't say anything about putting it back in. So now it also says AI may often make mistakes. So, but yeah, I definitely would like to.
And it does.
Yeah, I'd like to dig a little deeper into that to see if it has in fact been put back in.
Yeah, I
All right,
agree.
guys.
I agree.
Excellent chat.
Before you do,
the,
we got to speak about sponsors. We always do. This episode of the Political Orphans brought to you by Miss Cleo's Pet Treats, 100% natural dog treats made right here in Canada. She makes them at a home. She buys the meat from Manitoba, local farm. None of that nasty Chinese meat, because your dog deserves better. And you know what they say, less Muslim, more dogs. No, that's so bad, but it's still true. That has nothing to do with her. That's just me saying that. But if you want to have great treats for your dog, natural treats, homemade, made with love, go to Cleo's Cookies and Treats.ca. We do have a discount code for 20% off your entire purchase. Political Orphans. Just look in the description below. And yes, Trevor, I was missing an S in the description in the show yesterday. So thank you for pointing it out. I fixed it. It's working, and you need to encourage her, because I got to tell you, man, my dog loves it, she's actually really fucking annoying now because she always
Really, eh?
you go in that direction in the basement. There's a fridge. If you go near that fridge, she expects you to bring her back something because she knows that's where we store it. So
Greedy
they're
bitch.
gonna love it. Just saying. Yep,
Nice.
I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm
All
done.
right, guys, we are going to put a pin in there for the night. Excellent show. Because we did have 2 guests today. Obviously, we weren't able to get 2 comments as much as we wanted to, but if you are a regular viewer of the show, you'll know that normally taking audience comments is a major part of the show. So get those comments out there. We will get to them eventually. If you want to support the show, please consider becoming a member. You can do that through YouTube for the low price of $2.99 per month. You can also buy us a coffee, which you will see in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. And of course, if neither of those options, just keep coming back. Throw those comments in there that help with the algorithm. That's another way you support the show. Other than that, folks, have a great evening, and we will catch you tomorrow night.
Peace.
Peace.